Hello, everybody. My name is David. Today is the 14th day of March. It is Thursday afternoon. It is 2019. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to do a little bit of history lesson intertwined with the Bible. Bear with me, if you would. I'm trying to make a point, and I hope by the time I reach the end of the video, my point comes across clear, and you'll understand where I'm going with it. I seen a story the other day where they actually did it mockingly, which aggravated me to begin with. But I've talked about in the last few days about hatred with our enemies or people who do not like us because we're Christians, that we are to not fall down to their level, meaning we're not to hate them, we're to love and pray for them. But I saw a story where they were saying, mockingly, again, I say, that millions and millions and millions, they said it multiple times, people in the United States believe that God put Donald Trump in the White House. You have to really think about that, because if you remember leading up to the election, from the point where he got the nomination, the Republican nomination in the summer of 2016, prior to that, nobody really even thought that, they knew he won some primaries and whatnot, but I still think people really believed, especially on the left and the Democrats, that, in the end, he wouldn't get the nomination. The Republicans and the American people would come to their senses and realize the joke is over with. We had a fun ride. It's time, because they were thinking it didn't matter who the Republicans put up. Hillary Clinton was the anointed one. She was the one to be, whisked, into the White House as if she was a queen, as if she deserved it. It was her time, this, that, and the other. So I believe people really started, worrying somewhat when he won the nomination in the summer of 2016 and became the Republican nomination or nominee for the President of the United States. After that, it's really when it kind of, got wild. It got really wild, because I believe every poll had him losing by a massive amount. So I really believe that people, think that God put him there. I, do believe that. I do believe God put him there, and I believe only God will remove him, even though the Democrats are really giving it a really good go, and they're going to continue to give it a good go at doing so. But let me tie this together. I want to go through history, but I want to start with a verse in the book of Daniel, chapter 4, verse 17. It says, and this is King James Version, "This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men." That is Daniel chapter 4, verse 17. There's times in the Bible where God has placed men in positions of power. We know Nebuchadnezzar was a really good ruler and leader. We know David was a good ruler and leader of his people. Throughout history, God has placed. Now, it does not mean that these people had to be, real strong Christians or real strong believers. I've said it before in previous videos that God will use whatever is needed, whatever person is needed at the time to get what he needs to get done. Meaning, just the way I said it, he's going to put in office whom he needs to get the job done. And in this case, I and millions and millions and millions of Americans believe God placed Donald Trump in the White House, and only God can remove him, meaning he will only let the Democrats succeed at impeaching him if he removes his hand from the White House, and in this case, the President of the United States. Now, the history lesson. We've seen through history with the Bible that God does place people in positions of power. I'm going to give you a couple examples, and I'm going to give you one example where we avoided catastrophe because God did put Donald Trump in the White House. The first example I'm going to give you is 1962, and that is in October. I was not alive, but I've studied this rather extensively. The older people know in October of 1962, the world was on the brink of nuclear war. We were on the absolute brink of annihilation. The United States on one side, the Soviet Union on the other side. Now, in October of 1962 is when the United States found out that the Soviet Union was placing medium-range ballistic missiles into Cuba, which is 90 miles off the coast of Florida, I believe Key West. It's 90 miles off the coast of the United States. These missiles were the medium-range nuclear-tipped, and I believe they were called the Sandal missiles. That was the name of the missile itself. It was a medium range, meaning launched from Cuba. It could actually make it up to DC, New York. It could hit the major areas of the United States and do absolute devastation. It's what they would call a first strike capability. By Russia putting the missiles within Cuba, it gave them the ability to have a first strike. Now, this is really important because now we have nuclear submarines that can park themselves right off of a coast of a nation. They don't even know they're there. And we have first strike capability. First strike is exactly what it is. You got the ability to strike first. And in a nuclear war, that's the most important, obviously, because if you can strike first and wipe your enemy out, there's no retaliation. So, in 1962, in October of 1962, the United States and the world came closest it probably has to nuclear holocaust. As I said, the Soviets had parked many, many medium-range ballistic missiles in Cuba, all pointing at North America, all pointing at the United States. At the time, we had a president in office, John F. Kennedy, a Democrat, and at the time, he had gathered up the smartest people that he could gather up, and he put them in a room, and he said, I need a solution. I need a solution by a specific date because I need to go on air and I need to speak to the American public before this thing leaks out and people, it would have been absolute mass panic if this leaked out. And he needed a solution. So he did that. I believe he had given the responsibility to his brother, the Attorney General of the United States at that time, Robert Kennedy, to gather a group of smart people, lock them in a room, and get a solution. So basically, to make a long story short, they came up with 3 solutions and gave 3 solutions to the President of the United States. The first solution was to send fighter bombers, which were the F-105 Thunder Chiefs, from Florida, which I believe would have been the Air Force Base Eglin, I believe, would have been the base that they would use. I'm pretty sure it was Eglin Air Force Base. They would have flown and bombed the missile sites. That was the first solution. All-out bombing. Second solution was all-out bombing using the F-105 Thunder Chiefs from Eglin, followed on by an invasion of Cuba. So the first solution was to just carpet bomb the whole region where they had the missiles located. The second solution was to do the same, bomb, but follow with invasion. The third solution he was given was what they call a quarantine or a blockade. And thankfully, He chose the third solution, and I'm going to tell you why. And it ties into 2016, and I'm going to tie it in, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And you'll see why God put the right person in office. John F. Kennedy chose quarantine. It was the slowest option of removing the missiles, meaning it was going to take the longest amount of time. It wasn't going to stop the ones that were already there being installed and being ready, but it would stop any more from coming into Cuba. Kennedy's thinking at the time is if I can stop any more coming in and slow down the ones that are on the ground, that would give us time to negotiate or have the diplomats do what diplomats do, talk to one another, trying to avert pending disaster. Now, the reason he didn't pick the first two options, which I think is very smart, and a lot of people don't think about this, and this ties into Hillary Clinton in 2016, was because if he bombed those missile sites, even if they invaded or whatever, if he bombed them, he would have been killing Russian soldiers. He would have been killing Russian advisors. And you know, there's no way the Soviet Union would have just sat back, did absolutely nothing about their soldiers being killed. Just put it this way. What if American soldiers would have been bombed and killed? Do you think the United States would have sat back and did nothing? No, of course not. We would have found a place where they had their soldiers. We would have bombed them. There goes the whole ball of wax. So those first two options he thought through were no good because he knew killing Soviets, bad idea. So he picked the right one. God intervened, put the right man in the job at the right time to divert or avert disaster. I fast forward all the way to 2016. I'm going to finish up with this and tie it all together. In 2016, after Donald Trump was nominated and won the Republican Party nomination, and Hillary Clinton had locked up the Democratic nomination, they were going on what they call press tours, where they were going out talking about their policies, what they're going to do for America once elected, if elected, whatever you want to call it. So I'll never forget this. Hillary Clinton, at the time, the Syrian conflict was heating up. It had been going on and it was really getting bad. And she was asked what would she do if elected president to start, calming that region, that area, that nation, calming that situation down. How would you go about doing that? And I'll never forget the first thing she said. The very first thing she said she would implement would be a no-fly zone over the Syrian airspace. Now, I know you're saying, David, well, what's that? Who cares? What's that matter? When a nation institutes a no-fly zone, anything other than that nation's aircraft that is in the air gets shot down. No questions asked. Now, at that time, the Russians were and still are backing the president of Syria. They were the ones flying missions all around Syria. They were flying all around in their MiG-29s. They were flying all around, all their different types of aircraft. So Hillary Clinton comes in, institutes a no-fly zone. American F-15s are flying. Here comes Russian MiG-29s. We have a standing order of a no-fly zone. The only option we have from that order, from the commander-in-chief, is to shoot down those airplanes because that's the order. That's what a no-fly zone means. That means you are not to be flying in that zone. That's it. You're taken out. So again, you go back to 1962. What do you think would have happened once she instituted that no-fly zone? Putin would not have backed down. You know how he is. He would not have backed down. He would have sent his jets up just like he had sent them up every day prior. And Hillary being Hillary, we would have had a disaster on our hands. So you see, God works in such mysterious ways. He does place people in positions. He does. And I truly believe in my heart he placed Donald Trump in the White House. Not just for that. I'm sure that was, I've never forgot that when she said that. I remember when she said that, the first thought that went to my mind was 1962 and John F. Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis, and thinking, man, if they start shooting Russian jets down, there goes the whole ball of wax. Putin's not going to do anything but respond by shooting our planes down. And knowing the way Hillary is, wanting to attack Russia anyways, giving any type of instigation to do it, she's going to do it. So think about that. Think about that today, if you would. I know this video is a little bit different. Well, it's actually a lot different than I usually do. But it does tie into the Bible. It ties in that God does use the people that he needs to do the job that he needs to be done. And I'll say it one more time. I do believe in my heart that that man was put in the White House to divert not only that impending disaster, but probably many others that we don't even know about, because the right person won the election. Think about that today. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. I will see you tomorrow. Take care.